my channel. I'm Rachel, the owner and creator here at the Eclectic Cottage in Spokane, Washington. For today's video, I finished a project that I have had sitting in my kitchen for probably 3 or 4 months at least now, that I got last summer. Had every intention of doing it right away, but for whatever reason, it was a little bit of an intimidating piece because it's completely different than anything else that I've ever really tackled. So I finally decided that I needed to get it out of my kitchen and finished and on my floor. So that's what I did for today's video. I am so happy with how it came out, you guys. I can hardly wait to show it to you. So without further ado, let's get to today's project. So I don't know if you guys remember, but this is the Fireplace screen that I picked up sometime in the fall at a yard sale for $5. When I brought it home, I realized it smelled kind of like cat pee. So I put it out in my shed, and I brought it in a while ago. It wasn't so stinky anymore, but I had every intention of finishing this thing probably, I don't know, 3 months ago, and just have never gotten around to it. So it's been kicking around in my kitchen ever since. I finally had my husband go to Home Depot and buy some backer board and have them cut it to the measurements that I needed to fill these holes. And I am just now taking out the ugly old pieces of warped, gross, smelly backer board using my little bitty screwdriver and a scraper tool. I just wanted to dry fit these to make sure they actually would work. And unfortunately, a couple of them were just a little bit big. So I ended up taking them outside, and with some 150 grit sandpaper, I just sanded down the edges until I could fit them. So it's kind of what I'm doing here. I kept having to stop and run inside and place it in this hole and see if it would fit, and then bring it back out and do a little bit more sanding until I could get these pieces to fit down into their slots like they're supposed to. Finally, after several trips in and out of my door, making sure that these would fit, I finally got them down to where they needed to be and was able to move on to painting my backer board pieces. Now, this is that backer board that has one really textured side and then one smooth side. And I found that a lot of water helps with the painting of the very textured side. So I spritzed them pretty well with some clean water, and I am painting these with DIY's Little Black Dress, and I am just giving these guys one coat right now. I honestly was hoping one coat would be good enough, but I think with the amount of water I was using, it looked a little splotchy in places, so I did end up going over these again with a second coat of the paint. Once I was finished with both coats of paint and the backer board pieces were completely dry again, it was time to seal the back portion, and for that I'm using DIY's Big Top. I really like Big Top because it is such a durable sealer. Goes on very, very easily with a brush, dries clear, and does leave just a little bit of a satin finish. Once I was finished with that and I had set these guys aside to dry again, it was finally time to flip them over and paint the front side. And for that, since I am going to be using a decoupage paper over the front of these that I want to really, really stand out, I am painting these white Swan by DIY. I did end up giving these all 2 coats of the white Swan just to make sure that there weren't any shadows or darker areas that might show through my decoupage paper. Now keep in mind the paint and products that you see me using today can be purchased at my website, and that's www.theeclecticcottagespokane.com. Now I find with the second coat of paint, a lot of the time it's easier if you have a mister bottle on hand. DIY paint is water-based, so you can use water to thin it out a little bit, and it definitely helps a little bit of paint go a long ways. As I stated earlier, I am going to be adding decoupage paper to these. So I decided to be on the safe side this time and go ahead and seal my white paint. For that, I chose to use a spray sealer. This is by Rust-Oleum. It is just a clear satin enamel, and I am using one coat on all of these boards to seal that paint up so that when I go to decoupage, I don't accidentally reactivate my white paint with the decoupaging medium and pull any of that into my decoupage paper. Finally, back to the actual frame of this fireplace screen, and it's time to get it ready for paint. But this thing was so filthy dirty, so I needed to clean it. And for that, I grabbed my handy dandy crud cutter and sprayed this thing down really, really well. I used probably 3 paper towels to clean this. It was so gross, you guys. And then I took my clean water in my mister bottle and gave it a good misting, and then wiped it down again just to make sure I had all of the dirt and grime off of this piece. As I was cleaning this piece, I realized there were several places that were very rough to the touch. So I ended up grabbing some sandpaper. I think I grabbed 120 or 150 grit sandpaper, and I went over all of the rough places with some sandpaper just to make sure everything was nice and smooth and ready for paint. Once I had sanded everything nice and smooth, of course, I needed to clean it back up again. So I just grabbed a damp shop towel and wiped everything back down, wiped all that sanding dust off, and then I was finally ready to actually paint this thing. Now, I have known since I got this that I really wanted to paint it black, and so that is what I'm doing. I am using a Little Black Dress by DIY. Absolutely love this paint. It's great because it's so highly pigmented that I only had to go over this with one coat of paint, which was lovely. It was a little bit tricky to get into some of the little small places on this. I ended up having to actually grab a little brush so that I could get all of the little details painted. But again, just going over this with one good coat of DIY's Little Black Dress. And once I'm finished with that, I can move on to the next step. Once I had made sure that every square inch of this thing was covered in a coat of Little Black Dress, other than the original sticker that I left alone, it was time to move on to the decoupaging. For this, I am using this absolutely stunning paper by Redesign with Prima. This is one of their A1 fibrous papers. It's called Contrast of Night and Petal, and I am using that to decoupage the backer boards. Now, unfortunately, the decoupage paper wasn't quite long enough to cover all 3 boards completely. So I had to be very careful to make sure that I cut this out so that the outside edges of both of the longer boards were the parts that didn't end up with paper on them. It was a little bit of a mind trick, but I managed to figure it out. And then I am just using DIY's liquid patina to lay this paper on the backer boards. And I found that it's a perfectly adequate medium for decoupaging these heavier papers. You just need to have a nice thin or nice thick even smooth coat of the liquid patina on your piece, and then lay your paper down, and then put another fairly heavy coat of the liquid patina over your paper. I iron my paper to get wrinkles out before I put it down. I just put it between 2 layers of my shop towels. I spritz the shop towel with a little bit of water so that there's a little steam, and that helps get out any wrinkles. So you can see here, the middle piece was almost exactly the size I needed it. I didn't want to have any white showing on this piece in particular. You'll see why here in just a little bit. But again, just centering this on the board, making sure that I've got everything covered as best I can, and then smoothing that out over that coat of the liquid patina on the top, and then going over that paper with another coat of the liquid patina. And then again, just working my way in strips, a little bit of liquid patina, put my paper down, smooth it out, and then cover it with another coat of liquid patina all the way down the board. So next up, I grabbed the two side pieces and went ahead and used some sandpaper to get rid of the excess paper over the ends of each of these pieces. Just using a downward motion here, some 150 grit sandpaper, and that excess paper comes off just really, really easily. Now, the next step is to take a little black dress and to cover up the white strip on the outside of these pieces of paper. So this is going to be seen. It'll be against the black frame, and I wanted to cover it up. So I'm using this is a stencil brush, so it's very flat, and I'm using quite a bit of paint at a time, and I am pouncing that paint on to give it a little bit of texture so that you don't really see the edge of the paper. I'm also going into the paper just a little bit, giving it kind of a cloudy look to some effect right along the edge so that it doesn't look like just one line of paint. Once that's done and my paint is nice and dry, I did go over it with the liquid patina so that hopefully the sheen would pretty much match what was going on with the paper. Then I set those aside and came back to the big piece for the middle. Did the same thing with the sandpaper, just getting rid of that excess decoupage paper. And then those are ready to go together. You can see the design there. It's beautiful. Then it's time to finish up the frame, and I decided to go ahead and distress this. I really like the look of black distressed back to a dark brown like this. And this piece was very heavily distressed to begin with. It was made to look distressed, and I thought that it was just kind of a natural order of things to go ahead and do some distressing of my own, just to kind of blend everything in with that rustic kind of finish that this thing had. And of course, one of the great things about DIY paint is it's very easy to wet distress. All you need is a damp towel or a damp rag and just rub where you want to see your original finish. Then it's on to sealing my paint. And for me, I really like black wax over the DIY's little black dress. I think it just gives it such a beautifully elegant finish. And so that's what I'm using here. I'm using kind of a small little brush. I do thin my wax just a little bit with some mineral spirits. It helps move it around a little easier, and you can cover a whole lot of area with not so much wax. And then I am taking a dry shop towel and just carefully wiping back the excess wax. Now, of course, this did take me a minute because I insist on using my tiny little brush, but I like to make sure that I get into all of the little nooks and crannies, and I don't have a large brush that I really like for using the dark or the black waxes. So I usually end up just grabbing this little bitty paintbrush that I have, and when I'm done, I just clean it up with some mineral spirits and then throw it back in my jar. And finally, after all of those steps and all of that work, it's time to put this thing back together. At this point, I am so nervous because I don't know exactly what it's going to look like when I flip it over. But you guys, look at this. I cannot believe how good this thing turned out. From here for today, you guys. I hope you liked my fireplace screen renovation. I think it turned out wonderfully, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember to give it a thumbs up. I so appreciate that. And if you haven't already, I would absolutely love it if you would subscribe to my channel and then just hit that little notification bell so you don't miss anything. And then don't forget to drop me a comment below and let me know what you thought of my fireplace screen makeover. For Tuesday's video, I'm really not sure at this point exactly what that's going to look like. I did a whole bunch of rearranging in the cottage yesterday, and I did take a little bit of footage of that. We're also going to be going over on Sunday to get more tropicals for inside here, and I am excited to show you guys some of those. So no matter what, I will have something fun for you guys on Tuesday, so I hope you'll join me for that. And as a reminder, any of the paint products you saw me use today can be purchased on my website at www.theeclecticcottagespokane.com. I think I have one of those decoupage papers left in my inventory, so if you want it, grab it. Anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Can't believe the weekend's here already. And I will see you back here on Tuesday. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'll see you then. Bye.